Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our sports show. As you know, we've been premiering live on radio, live on air about a special feature coming up this upcoming month. It's called Global Rugby Legends, where we're speaking to renowned and revered rugby players from the last 30 or 40 years from not only Ireland, but from Scotland, Wales, England, France, Ireland, Australia and New Zealand. We have some terrific guests coming up to share some memories about their careers. And my guest this evening is a former Scottish fly half. He represented Scotland from 1989 to 1999. Over 60 appearances for Scotland, over 166 points. He also represented the British Lions and Barbarians as well, scoring 13 appearances for the Barbarians, over 101 points. He's also played for Edinburgh Harlequins and numerous Scottish district sides, the one and only Craig Chalmers. Craig, an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Craig, first of all, you played in a time where Scotland rugby was really on a high, on a really swan song, and Scottish rugby teams then back in the early 90s expected to do well in not as we called it before, the Six Nations, Five Nations. Didn't fear really anyone, had some world-class rugby players. And did you feel at that time that you were playing in a golden age of Scottish rugby?
Well, listen, when I came into the team, I was, I think, fortunate to come into the team with the players that were there. I came in just after John Rutherford. John Rutherford had got an injury. There was in '87 before the World Cup, and then '88 there was two guys who played, Andrew Kerr and Richard Cram, and none of them really got established. So I got the opportunity through district rugby for the south of Scotland, playing in the district championship. They're like mini trials for the international team in December before this Five Nations started in January. So I played a trial match and played well. And it was all about taking your chance when it was there. I was a young kid. I was a youngster at the time. I was only 20 years old. But, I was light. I was 78 kilograms at the time. Not much of me, but, I got an opportunity to state my claim. I did that. And I got my debut against Wales in 1989, January '89. At Murrayfield, and it went pretty well, to be fair.
And Craig, growing up for you as a child, growing up in the part of Scotland, was it always rugby that you grew up with? Did you play other sports? Were you a prominent athlete growing up? And when did you start to fall in love with rugby? Or were you obviously academically bright? Could you have gone on to be a prominent member in terms of a professional career as well?
Listen, I think where I was from was Melrose, Scottish Borders, where the home of sevens, where this game of sevens was invented. Rugby was the heart. Scottish rugby was the heartland of Scottish rugby was the Borders, Melrose, Gala, Hawick, all the great border sides. And there wasn't much else apart. Well, I played a lot of sports. I played golf. I played tennis. I played a bit of soccer. But rugby was the one that was, you had week in, week out. Where the international, ex-international who coaches at the school, with Bill McLaren coming along to the school and with these Hawick teams. He was a PE teacher in Hawick. He used to bring the Hawick teams across to Melrose to play the primary school, and Bill would referee the game. So we had a fantastic, introduction to the game, and I loved it from the start, and I wasn't too bad at it. So, if you're good at something, you want to keep doing it. And it was always my ambition once I got into the teams and started playing at a level of competition in the Scottish under-15 schools team. I always wanted to go on and play for Scotland at a senior level. And, listen, I'm lucky. It's always about right time, right place, I think, a lot of the time. But I was lucky to go into a team that had Finlay Calder, John Jeffrey, David Soule, the Hastings sisters, Gavin and Scott. There's some great players there at the time. Gary Armstrong was a good friend of mine. I played with Gary at junior level coming through under 21s. And, he was in the Scottish team, one cap before me. He played against Australia in the autumn. So I came into Scottish rugby at a good time. and lucky to play with some fantastic players. And it was a bit of a golden era. I mean, I don't think I lost. I think I lost one game in the Five Nations in the first 2 years. That was to France. That was to France in Paris, which was a sunny day in Paris. Spring day in Paris isn't always the best time to play them when the sun's at the back with Blanco and Sella and Charvet and Lagisque, all these fantastic French backs running at you. So, you know, a great time. You know, obviously I went to Lions as well, which was, you know, in '89, my first season. I had 4 caps, went to Lions tour. But you know, after that, you know, Grand Slam 1990 was obviously a massive thing for us. And you know, unfortunately, the Scottish boys haven't done it since. But you know, hopefully they will do in the near future. But yeah, it was a golden era. We should have got to the World Cup final as well in '91. You know, if it hadn't been for Gavin Mead missing that kick at goal, which you know, he never misses those kicks. He never missed those kicks. So yeah, listen, I was lucky. You know, I count myself very fortunate to play in that team. I wouldn't change for all the money the guys earn nowadays in the professional era. Yeah, I wouldn't swap it. No chance.
And Craig, you mentioned Scotland, and you mentioned that Grand Slam victory over England. Your battles against England throughout the 90s were ferocious. You had a great sort of rivalry, and you were the 2 most prominent teams in the Northern Hemisphere at the sort of time in terms of deciders. You almost felt like you didn't fear. You had no fear of the English. Obviously, English had so many resources. They had the Underwoods. The likes of Will Carling, Jeremy Guscott, sort of players like that. But on any given day, if you got ahead of them at all, it almost felt that England could never head you if you got ahead of them. Yeah,
well, they came to. I mean, to be fair to them, in 1990, we'd sort of scraped past Ireland in the first game, and we beat France quite convincingly at Murrayfield. They had the players sent off, and we beat them 21-0. Then we scraped past Wales in Cardiff. And England had thumped everybody right throughout that championship. They came to Murrayfield probably a bit too cocky, a bit overconfident, and they came through the ball about, and we knocked them down again and again and again. And you know, we kicked a goals. We scored a great try from Tony Stanger. But it was you know, the atmosphere that day. There was loads of stuff going on politically as well at the time, with Maggie Thatcher and the poll tax. He had the poll tax in Scotland, and there was a lot of resentment and ill feeling in Scotland. So when the English boys came to Murrayfield that day, you know, they could hear it in the crowd, and they walked out. They ran out. They were out there a bit early. And back in those days, you know, you get a knock on the door, and you know, we waited for 2 minutes, so they'd be left out there, you know, in that atmosphere. And then we decided to walk out. The senior players had decided that we were going to do this walk out on the pitch just to make it slow, and I think to make the crowd and the noise throng for longer. And it certainly did. I think it did its job, to be fair. As we walked out to the 5 meter line, and then we started running. And then the atmosphere that day was, I mean, watching it now on my VHS video recorder, I think it makes the hairs in the neck stand up, and you know, back of your neck. It does. It was yeah. Listen, unfortunately, we didn't win it again. We had the chances throughout the 90s. We had a couple of opportunities to win the Grand Slam, especially down in Twickenham in '95. You know, but you know, England learnt a lot that day. They tightened the game up, and although they had great backs, like you mentioned, Guscott, Carling, Rob Andrew, Underwood, some great players, fantastic players. They had some fearsome forwards and very physical forwards, and that's where the real strength was. That's where they could beat people up, and they probably did that a little bit to us later on in the 90s. And that we didn't get the platform at times that we had that day at Murrayfield in 1990. We never really got that dominance back again, and go forward. But yeah, listen, we gave it a good shot, because you know, we're always sort of punching above our weight a little bit. But after that too, and after the Grand Slam, we went down to New Zealand as well, and you know, we should have won. We should have won down there in the second test. We gave it a good go in the first test in Dunedin, and then the second test in Eden Park, we were 18-9 up at half time, and we got beat 21-18. 2 dodgy penalties. Dodgy Welsh ref, Mr. Derek Bevan, gave away 2 late penalties against us, and we lost that one. But yeah, great team to play with, and it sort of broke up a little bit after that, and then there was a rebuild. But yeah, great time to be playing in a Scottish jersey, and great memories.
Craig, you mentioned there about through the 90s, and obviously you're a renowned fly half yourself, but in the Six Nations they had some real quality fly halves as well, and you would probably came across a young Neil Jenkins, you would have probably came across Eric Elwood as well. Did you actually, when you were studying the opposition, did you actually study Elwood and Jenkins and watch clips of those, or in terms of that, or back then was there any real study you got on into it?
Not really, no. I think back in those days, you saw Rugby Special. That's about all you got was Rugby Special. If Pontypridd were on, you saw Jenks play, or Wasp, you had Rob Andrew, or I mean Ireland. I can't remember who Eric played for. Who did Eric play for? I can't remember his club team.
Connacht was the province.
No, but it'd be a club team at the time.
Yeah, it was club team.
We did play against the Irish provinces. We did play the south of Scotland played against Munster, Leinster. But I remember one of my first trips to Belfast. We played Ulster on the Friday night when none of the other Scottish teams were travelling to play. We beat them 9-7 at Ravenhill, and then we with a night out in Belfast at the Europa Hotel, and I think somebody wanted in, so they phoned with a bomb scare, and everyone had to leave the premises. So we all went back in again. And then got back on it with the Ulster boys, and a great night. Then we got on a bus on the Saturday, drove down to Dublin, and we played Leinster on the Sunday and got absolutely hammered by Leinster. 2 days and 2 games in 3 days. That and that was bit of player welfare back in the day.
Yeah. And Craig, you mentioned the World Cup there for you and coming sort of so close. Do you feel that maybe the Scotland, even to get to a Rugby World Cup semi-final, obviously Scottish rugby fans would bite your right arm off for that if such an achievement could be measured that day? Do you felt you overachieved, or in some ways, given the talent that you had, do you feel you a bit underachieved?
I think we underachieved. We underachieved in 91, because I think we could have won it that year. We had the opportunity to go all the way. We obviously beat Ireland in the group game, and we got top place, so they made the draw easier. Obviously, Ireland went on to play Australia in the quarterfinal and just narrowly lost to Michael Liner's try. But we played Samoa, so Western Samoa, sorry, in the quarterfinal. And then we played England at home again. After the 1990 Grand Slam game, it was 6-all with. It was 6-all with 4 or 5 minutes to go. Gavin had a kick virtually in front of the post and missed it. If we'd gone 9-6 up with 5 minutes to go, 4 or 5 minutes to go, I do believe we'd have been in that final against Australia. And who knows? We were capable of winning that for sure. But we'll never know. You got to, it's these big moments, and you got to take them. And then the 95 World Cup, the 2 that I played in, we lost narrowly in a group game, and it was crucial. We lost to France in the 88th minute, a try in the 88th minute, which by Emilian Tamac in the corner, and that sort of sentenced us to a game against the All Blacks and John Olumo in Pretoria. If we'd won that game against France, we'd have been down in Durban playing against Ireland, which would have been a lot easier. Because Ireland. I know it's an Irish program, but I never lost to Ireland. I played against Ireland 9 times and never lost, which was fantastic. And I even came to Dublin playing for the Barbarians against South Africa, and we won that as well. So, and recently I actually played for the Irish Legends in a game against England a few years ago, and we won that as well. So Dublin's always been a good hunting ground for me, and I always had a great time there as well down Leishman Street.
Craig, if you can summarise your rugby career, and if you can look back on the rugby player that was Craig Chalmers, how would you describe him to me in 2 sentences?
Oh, jeez. Listen, I had a great time. I played at the right time. I was confident. I would never say I was arrogant. I was always confident. I believed in I believed in what I could do. But and I worked very, very hard. I worked very, very hard to get to where I was. I wasn't the most skillful player in the world, but you know, I could hold my own with anybody for 5, 6, 7 years in the world. So I mean, I did feel that you know, I was up there with the best. But you know, you've got to have that self-belief. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. So you know, I had that self-belief, and I had a great time, and we had some great victories, and I've got some great memories. And you know, I'm very, very grateful for getting that opportunity. And you know, we still continue on these great relationships we have with the ex-players today, whether that's a golf day or an international. So it's, you know, so we're very privileged to have done what we've done in the arenas that we've played in, and we still got these great friendships today to take on in our old age, and we can reminisce and talk about how great we were.
On that note, Craig, Chalmers, indeed, how great you were. 10 years representing Scotland, 166 points. British Lions, Barbarians, over 101 points for the Barbarians as well. Obviously, a Scottish Grand Slam winner, a Rugby World Cup semi-finalist. Thanks for taking your time today, sharing your memories on this episode of Global Rugby Legends. A pleasure speaking to you, Craig, and hopefully many stories yet to be untold.
Cheers, Jim. Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.